They kicked me out 3 hours after I told them I was broke. Not a single tear. Not even a moment's pause. My mother folded my clothes into a grocery bag like she was packing up leftovers. My father avoided looking at me the entire time. My sister stood at the doorway, arms crossed, as if guarding the family's honor. They didn't ask if I was okay. They just wanted me gone. Maybe I should clarify. This wasn't some accidental confession. I didn't slip up and reveal my finances over dinner. No, I planned it. I rehearsed every line. I wanted to see how far their so-called unconditional love would go. Turns out, not very far. But let me back up a bit. I'm Naomi, 31 years old, quiet by nature. I work in finance, consulting to be exact. One of those jobs that pays decently but never quite impresses anyone at holiday dinners. I've always been the middle child, not just in age, but in visibility. My older sister, Helena, was the golden girl. Dad's pride. Law degree, big wedding, 2 kids by 30. My younger brother? A rebel, sure, but at least he was charming. And me? I was the reliable one, the backup babysitter, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, the one who quietly picked up the dinner tab when my parents' credit card got declined at Applebee's. But I guess reliability gets boring. Or maybe they just got used to having me as their safety net. I moved back home temporarily after a breakup. My apartment lease was ending. My ex had relocated across the country. And honestly, I needed to reset. Mom offered the guest room. I didn't think much of it. Just a few months to get my bearings and figure out the next step. At first, it was fine. Quiet. Functional. Then Helena moved back in too. She said it would be just a week while her new kitchen was being renovated. That was 4 months ago. Helena came with 2 toddlers, a nanny, 3 oversized suitcases, and a cloud of perfume that somehow lingered long after she left any room. Suddenly, the house shifted. Every conversation began with, "What does Helena need?" Or, "Let's make sure Helena's schedule is clear." One night, I got home late after a freelance meeting. The front door was locked. Not just locked, dead-bolted. My key no longer worked. When Mom finally opened the door, she blinked at me. "Oh," she said. "We didn't think you'd be home this late." I stared at her. "It's 9:15. "Well, Helena put the kids to bed early. We didn't want to risk waking them up." I didn't argue. I didn't say what I wanted to say, that this was still my home, too, that I wasn't some drifter crashing on the couch. I had a room. I cleaned up. I kept to myself. I paid for groceries half the time without anyone asking. But none of that mattered anymore. I started noticing little things. My laundry kept getting accidentally mixed with the dog towels. My food would disappear from the fridge. My calls home went unanswered, unless Helena wasn't around. At one point, Mom asked if I could be more discreet during my Zoom meetings because the kids were napping. It was like I'd become background noise, so I did something that wasn't entirely rational, but very, very intentional. I told them I lost my job. It wasn't a lie exactly. I just let them assume it meant I was broke. I didn't mention the contracts I still had lined up, or the 6 figures sitting quietly in my investment account. I wanted to see who would flinch. Spoiler, no one. They didn't even ask how they could help. Helena clutched her pearls and said, "That's unfortunate," like I'd misplaced an umbrella. Dad asked if I'd thought about learning a trade, like plumbing or something useful. And Mom? She sighed and muttered, "Well, you had a good run." A good run. The next morning, they handed me a box of my things and asked when I'd be moving out. I asked if I could stay a little longer, just to get things in order. Mom glanced at Helena, who gave a tight, forced smile. Then Mom said, "Sweetheart, it's just not a good time." I looked at the 3 of them, and that was the moment I knew. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about worth. And somewhere along the way, mine had expired in their eyes. I left that night. No screaming, no drama, just me, my duffel bag, and the quietest goodbye I'd ever whispered to a hallway. But as I stood outside under the flickering porch light, a strange calm washed over me. They thought they were throwing out dead weight. They had no idea what I was about to do next. And this time, I wasn't doing it for their approval. It's strange how quiet the world becomes when no one's expecting you to show up. I didn't go far that night. I booked a small Airbnb studio on the edge of town. One bed, chipped tile, a flickering light in the bathroom. But it was mine. I sat on the edge of the mattress, shoes still on, phone still in hand, waiting for a text, a call, an apology. None came. They didn't even ask where I went. The silence wasn't what hurt the most. It was how easy it was for them, like erasing me didn't cost them a thing. I lay awake that night thinking about all the versions of me they had taken for granted. The sister who helped Helena hide her first pregnancy test, the daughter who worked 2 jobs in college and never once asked for a dime, the woman who sat through endless lectures from Dad about fiscal responsibility, all while keeping her own credit score pristine. I had always been careful, stable, invisible, and now I was disposable. The next morning, I stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror, eyes puffy, lips pressed tight. And one thought kept playing in my mind. Maybe I did this to myself. Maybe years of being the one who never needed anything taught them that I wasn't worth anything. The week passed in a fog. I kept up my freelance work. Thank God for remote clients. I showed up to video calls, smiled politely, gave financial forecasts like I hadn't just been gutted from the inside out. I even helped a client secure a small business loan. She called me a lifesaver. Funny, my own family had just called me a burden. Every night, I came back to that cold little room. I'd scroll through old photos. Thanksgiving dinners, birthday cakes, Helena blowing out candles with her kids while Mom smiled wide in the background. And always, I was the one holding the camera, the one behind the lens, never in the frame. I went out to get coffee one afternoon, and that's when I ran into Mr. Parker, our old neighbor. 70, retired firefighter, always wore suspenders no matter the weather. Naomi? He blinked. Haven't seen you around the house lately. You okay? I forced a smile. Just needed a little space. He chuckled. Tell me about it. Your sister's car's been parked halfway across my driveway for a week. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I said, Yeah, that sounds about right. Then more softly, I'm not staying there anymore. He looked at me with something close to sadness. You know, your folks brag about you all the time. Said you were the smart one. Quiet but sharp. Reliable. That word again. Reliable. Like a piece of furniture. I nodded, thanked him, and left. But those words stuck in my chest like a splinter. Smart, sharp, reliable. Just not lovable. Not worth fighting for. The real blow came a few days later. I stopped by the house, not to go in, but just to see. Call it weakness, call it curiosity. I parked across the street and watched as Helena and Mom loaded the kids into the car. Helena was laughing. Mom was holding a casserole dish. They looked so normal. I was about to drive away when I saw my dad open the garage and pull out a cardboard box. One I recognized immediately. My books, my old photos, a framed certificate from grad school. He walked straight to the curb and left it by the trash. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't yell or cry or ask him why. I just sat there, watching, while a raccoon sniffed at the edge of the box under the orange glow of the street lamp. That night, something inside me cracked. Not a scream, not a sob, just a decision. I was done proving myself to people who didn't want to see me. I was done measuring my worth by how many dinners I paid for, or how quiet I could be in someone else's house. They had made it clear their love had limits, conditions, a balance sheet, and they'd written me off. Fine. Then I'd stop trying to earn a seat at their table. I'd build my own. I didn't post about it, didn't rant on Facebook, didn't call my friends and vent. I just went quiet, focused, locked in. By the end of that week, I'd moved into a month-to-month rental on the other side of town. Not glamorous, but it had light, space, and a kitchen I could call mine. I set up a second monitor, rebuilt my client base, took on extra work. Projects I'd declined before out of fear of burnout. I worked late, slept little, and poured every ounce of pain into something useful. Progress. One email became 3 contracts. A referral turned into a retainer. The woman who had once spent her nights crying into a cheap pillow was now helping small businesses close 100K funding rounds. The money started stacking. But the peace, that came slower. There were still moments I missed them. Not the judgment, not the shame, just the idea of them. The version of my family I used to pretend existed, but each day made it easier. Each win reminded me I was never the problem. I was just the mirror. And some people don't like what they see in one. The turning point came quietly. An email from Helena. Subject line, "Hey." No apology, no warmth. Just, "Do you know anyone who can help us with a tax issue? It's kind of urgent." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't respond right away. Because I wasn't angry, I was clear. I didn't reply to Helena's email, not because I wanted revenge, because I finally understood that not everyone deserves access to you, especially when the only time they knock is when they need something. I left her message in my inbox, unread. Let it sit there like a scar that didn't hurt anymore, just reminded me how deep the wound used to be. Instead, I poured everything into rebuilding my life. Not for show, not for spite, just for me. I started waking up earlier, took walks around the block with no music, just the sound of my own thoughts finally having space to breathe. I read more, took on clients I used to think were out of my league, said yes to opportunities that scared me, and no to people who didn't respect my boundaries. For the first time in years, I stopped asking what would make my family proud. And I started asking what would make me proud. The growth wasn't glamorous. It was slow, uneven. Some days I still heard my mother's voice in my head. It's just not a good time. But I stopped letting those words define my worth. Instead, I defined my schedule. By the end of that quarter, I had tripled my income. By the end of the year, I'd launched my own LLC. I called it Anchor North, because even when everything around you spins, you deserve a place that holds steady. And I did it all quietly. No big social media announcement, no dramatic rebrand, just steady, consistent work. I didn't even change my phone number. They still had access to me. They just didn't know what I had become. One of my clients was a retired CFO from a Fortune 500 company. He took me under his wing, started introducing me to his network. The more I showed up, the more I got invited in. Dinners, strategy calls, investment meetings. They called me the quiet closer, the one who didn't talk much but always delivered. At one point, a startup offered me equity in exchange for restructuring their finances. I said yes. That equity turned into 7 figures within 18 months. And still, I told no one. Because I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was just living. Until one afternoon, I got another email. This one from my mother. Subject line, "Hope you're well." The body of the email was polite, distant, as if written by someone who didn't want to acknowledge what they'd done, only what they wanted now. She asked if I could come to a small family gathering, said Helena would be there along with Dad, that they wanted to catch up. No mention of what happened, no acknowledgement of that night they sent me out into the cold. Just a dinner invite, like we were strangers trying to reconnect after losing touch. For a second, I considered ignoring it, but something in me paused, not out of longing, not even curiosity, just clarity. I wasn't that girl anymore. I didn't need to prove them wrong. I was proof that they had been wrong. So I said yes. I didn't overthink my outfit. I didn't rehearse speeches or practice icy stares in the mirror. I just showed up, neat, calm, quiet, like I always had. They had no idea they were about to meet the upgraded version of the daughter they once discarded. I walked into the restaurant 15 minutes early. It was a place Helena always picked. Dim lighting, white tablecloths, the kind of place where everyone spoke in low voices and the prices weren't on the menu. They were already seated. Helena looked up and gave me a tight smile. She looked tired, more lines around her mouth. Still flawless makeup, but the edge was duller now. My mother stood to hug me, briefly, like we hadn't skipped a year of silence. My father gave a nod. Small talk followed. Vacant compliments, forced laughter. I let them lead. They danced around the past like it was thin ice. No one dared bring it up. Until, over dessert, Helena finally broke. She leaned forward, pushing her wine glass aside, and said, "You look good, really good. You seem different." I met her gaze. "I am." There was a pause. The table went still. Dad cleared his throat. "So what have you been up to? Work-wise, I mean." I folded my hands. "Consulting, same as before. Built a firm. We handle high-growth financial restructuring and early-stage investment analysis." Helena blinked. "Wait, you own the firm?" I nodded. "For 2 years now." Mom tried to smile, but it flickered. Dad leaned back, eyes narrowing slightly. "And it's going well?" I tilted my head, polite. "It's going very well." I didn't brag, didn't drop numbers, but I could see the tension start to rise around their eyes, like they were only just realizing the gravity of what they'd missed, what they'd thrown away. Helena spoke again, this time quieter. "You know, if we had known things were hard back then, we would have..." I cut in, softly. "They weren't." She froze. I looked her in the eye. "Things weren't hard for me. I just let you think they were. You could have heard a pin drop. No one said a word. And I didn't need them to, because for once, I wasn't the one explaining. I was the one watching them try to catch up. The silence after my words wasn't awkward. It was surgical, like I had just pressed my finger against a nerve they didn't even know was exposed. Helena blinked. My mother shifted in her seat. Dad looked away, lips tightening like he'd just bitten into something bitter. "I let you believe I was struggling," I repeated softly, "because I wanted to see something. Just one thing." Helena swallowed. "And what was that?" I leaned in slightly. My voice didn't rise. "Who'd stand beside me when I had nothing to offer but myself?" Mom opened her mouth, closed it again. I looked at her. "You didn't even ask if I was okay." "I didn't know what to say," she whispered. "You didn't need to say anything, just not throw me out like I was in the way." Dad finally spoke. "We thought you needed space. We figured it was best for everyone." I let out the softest laugh. "That's the story you're going with?" No one responded. I didn't expect them to, because this wasn't about winning the argument. It was about reclaiming my place, not in their home, but in my own story. The waiter brought the check, and for a split second, everyone froze. I watched Helena instinctively reach for her clutch, but I was faster. I handed the server my card. "Please, it's on me." I said, without a hint of drama. They hesitated, and I saw it. That flicker of discomfort. The subtle shift of power. The same people who once viewed me as a burden were now sitting across from me, unsure how to accept a gesture they used to take for granted. When we walked outside, the sky had turned the color of fading steel. Wind tugged at my coat. The parking lot was nearly empty, the night air holding the weight of everything unsaid. "Naomi," Mom said suddenly, her voice hesitant. "I know we didn't handle things well, but maybe we can start again." I looked at her, not with anger, but with clarity. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I've stopped needing you." She blinked. I turned to Helena. "And you? You used to be my sister, my best friend." "I still am," she started, but I shook my head. "No. You were the first one to act like I was nothing the moment you thought I had nothing." Helena looked wounded. "That's not fair." I stepped closer. "Fair would have been you offering me your couch for one night, like I once did for you when your husband walked out. Fair would have been you asking if I was eating, if I was safe." She didn't answer, because what could she say? They hadn't failed me with one act. They'd failed me with 1,000 small ones, ones that taught me I only mattered when I was useful, and now? I wasn't useful to them anymore. I was unreachable. I got into my car, engine humming beneath me, and rolled down the window halfway. "One last thing," I said. "I never needed to test your loyalty. I just hoped I was wrong about how little I meant to you." They didn't move, didn't respond. So I rolled up the window and drove away. No rear-view glances, no tears, just clean, quiet distance. A month later, I was invited to speak at a business conference across the state. Nothing huge, just a leadership panel for women in finance. But it meant something to me. It was the first time someone introduced me as founder and CEO, without me needing to correct them. The auditorium was full. Cameras, laptops, 1,000 small flashes of light and attention. And I stood there, centered, speaking about resilience and silence and power. When I stepped off stage, someone approached me from the crowd. "Helena." She looked nervous. Her heels clicked too fast against the floor. "I didn't know you were going to be here," she said, voice tight. I smiled. "I'm on the brochure." She flushed. "I didn't mean..." "Listen, I just came with a friend. I didn't expect..." "Me? This version of me?" "Neither did you," I wanted to say, but I just nodded. "It's fine. "No, it's not," she said quickly. "Naomi, I was awful. I see it now. I should have said something, done something, anything. I was so wrapped up in my own chaos. You didn't have to rescue me," I said. "You just had to stand by me." Her eyes welled. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." And she was right. But this wasn't about what she deserved. It was about who I had become. "You're not wrong," I said gently. "But I'm not carrying it anymore." She nodded quietly, as if that single sentence did more to humble her than any scream ever could. And then I walked away. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to stay to prove I was above it. I was above it. These days, my mornings are quiet, not empty, just intentional. The sun comes through the kitchen window at just the right angle now. My coffee tastes better without a rush. I play jazz in the background as I read emails. No one's yelling, no one's waiting for me to fix anything. It's not glamorous, it's peaceful. And peace is what I worked the hardest to earn. I live in a townhome I bought 6 months ago. Nothing huge, just 2 bedrooms and a little patio where I grow herbs in mismatched pots. Every piece of furniture, every framed photo on the wall, it's all mine. I picked it, I placed it. I paid for it. I built this life from the same silence they once mistook for weakness. People ask me sometimes if I ever spoke to my family again. The truth? Not really. My mom sends the occasional text on birthdays. Helena tagged me in a post last Thanksgiving, some vague caption about gratitude and growth. I didn't like it, didn't comment either. Not because I'm bitter, because I no longer perform connection for the sake of appearances. They had their chance to hold me when I was bleeding. They chose to turn away. Now they only see the healed version, and they don't get to take credit for the scars they didn't tend to. I heard Helena and her husband split again. Mom mentioned it in a voicemail I never returned. She said something like, "Your sister's having a hard time. Maybe you could reach out." But here's the thing. I'm not a safety net anymore. I'm not the extra room they never appreciate until they need a place to crash. And I'm not cruel. I just finally understand the cost of self-abandonment. I don't owe them comfort, especially not when they never paid the price of my pain. And yet, I'm not angry, not anymore, because here's the truth they never understood. The person they pushed away, that version of me, scared, quiet, desperate for approval, she's gone. What's left is someone stronger, not in spite of what they did, because of it. Because they left me in the cold, and I learned how to build fire with my own hands. Because they told me I was too much trouble, and I learned I'm not too much, I'm too rare. And because I know now, loyalty isn't tested in comfort, it's revealed in discomfort. They failed that test, but I passed mine. One day, I'll probably run into them again. At a wedding, a funeral, some awkward gathering where people pretend blood is thicker than truth. And when I do, I'll smile. I'll say hello, maybe even hug them. But I won't shrink to fit the version of me they remember. And I won't let them shrink the life I built without them. Because I am no longer asking, why wasn't I enough for them? I'm asking, why did I spend so long trying to be? I'm no one's lesson. I'm the story they tell when they realize what happens when you misjudge quiet people. I'm the woman who walked out with nothing but her name and made that name mean something. So if you're watching this and you've ever been treated like a convenience, like a fallback, like a backup plan, if you've ever had to prove you were worthy of kindness from the people who should have given it without question, I want you to know you don't have to stay small to keep other people comfortable. You don't have to keep explaining your value to people committed to misunderstanding you. You are not hard to love. You are just in the wrong room. And leaving that room might be the beginning of everything. Call to action. So tell me, have you ever felt discarded by the people who were supposed to love you most? What did you do when they showed their true colors? Leave a comment below. I want to hear your story, and if this one hit home, share it with someone who needs to remember their worth. Because sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's finally choosing yourself. Naomi.